Hello, my name is Jerry Schmitt. I want to thank all the attendees for being here tonight. I'm a VA accredited claims agent. I have been accredited since 2009, and I originally got involved doing the VA benefit in 2006, and I really didn't know anything about it. And I just started to talk to assisted living communities in the Oak Brook and Naperville area, and they hadn't heard of it either. So I started to do workshops in the assisted living community, and it just kind of took off over there. About 2 years after I was doing the VA benefit, I decided to try to get accredited, and I took the classes, which was with the Veterans Assistance Commission in Illinois, and went to Scott Air Force Base in O'Fallon, Illinois, and took the week-long class, passed the test, and became accredited. So I've been accredited ever since the fall of 2008, and I actually had to take test again to be accredited in 2009 on a technicality. The processors or the program directors from the fall wanted to take my accreditation back because I wasn't a county veteran service officer. I was just a civilian. And they had a board meeting about it. And I said, well, what do I do now? And they said, well, you could take the test again. I said, oh, really? Okay. So I actually got accredited twice. But really the crux of it is talking to families and helping them through these care journeys. Where does care start? Care starts at home unless it's a traumatic event like a stroke or a hip fracture, and maybe some people can't go back to their home. But usually it's the spouse that's the first caregiver, or even family members that are the first caregivers, because everybody wants to stay in their home. So enter the veterans benefit. And I'm going to share my screen to tell you a little bit about the veterans benefit, because it actually can help people pay for care longer. And that's the position I took when I didn't know anything about it, and starting to talk to families and helping them out in their care journey. So it allowed me to learn a lot more about what is care and where is it being provided. I didn't really step foot into an assisted living building until this happened. And I started to learn, and I've actually become accredited. And I was in the Continuity of Care group, which is an Illinois Continuity of Care group. They have a mission to provide services to seniors, to make sure seniors are aware of what's out there. And I was a former president of the Illinois Continuity of Care Association, 2015 to 2019. And I'm actually going to be president of one of their local chapters again in the South Suburban region next year. And it really is to keep my name out there and keep me in front of people, because that is who we can help. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the veterans pension tonight. And I say and more because there's a lot more to it than just the pension. This is my contact information if you ever want to contact me, my phone number, my email address, my website. And every Tuesday at 7, I do a Zoom meeting just like this. If family or friends want to join in, I'll go a little bit further in what some of the strategies are to help people qualify. And you'll see through the presentation that I have a little bit of a different angle as how I look at the VA pension, because I know the power of it and what it can do for families. So what is the veterans pension? It's a VA benefit awarded to wartime veterans or their surviving spouses that meet these strict criteria. Now, if you're not wartime, I'm sorry I spoiled it for you. I can't change the rules. I think in the 1979, the VA created this type of pension in addition to the pensions they already had, and they threw in that it had to be wartime, and nothing's going to change that right now as far as I can tell. So if you'll notice, we've had, of course, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. Those are the big ones, and those are the people that need care now. And that's not to say that future veterans that served in the Persian Gulf or OEF or OIF aren't going to need care. They will. They're just younger, and the VA does a better job of providing benefits for them now than when they did, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. A lot of those veterans, when they were done with their service, they really didn't even want to follow up with the VA. They were just happy to be finished, and then they started their careers working. So it didn't have to be a condition or an illness that you had while you served. It could be something that's happening now, and it probably is. And the elderly tend to need care as time goes on. So the first question a family asks me, or I ask a family if they call me, is when did the veteran serve? And if it's for a mother or father, I'll ask if they were the veteran or they're the spouse. So if they tell me, well, no, they're the spouse, the veteran was my dad, and I'm not, I do have a lot of veterans that were women, so you have to ask. But the surviving spousal applications are about 70% of the applications that I do. So the first question is, when did the veteran serve? Sometimes the family knows for sure, sometimes they don't. A lot of times, if there's a second marriage or a step family, they might know of the service, but they just don't know when. So that's critical that we know that it's wartime, because sometimes I'll ask a family to pull out the DD 214 that they have or the honorable discharge that they have and just, hey, look right here, kind of the middle of the page, right over to the right a little bit, and tell me what it says for date of entry into active service. And I'll say, oh, that's a good date. As long as they serve more than 90 days, we're fine. So that's the first question. When did the veteran serve? 90 days active duty. One of those days has to touch a war period. The veteran did not have to be in a battle. The veteran could have been in, behind a desk in the United States, just as long as they were active in the military. And it's the 5 branches of the military. It is the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard. I do get calls periodically where a parent served during or in the National Guard. The National Guard is not considered part of the armed forces according to this criteria for this benefit. So we have to discern that before we go forward. The veteran had to have an honorable discharge. I've not run into a dishonorable discharge. So, I'll tell you what happens when I see it. I thought I was going to, and that was about 10 years ago, but it never really happened. The family never followed up with me. They did say their father had a dishonorable discharge, but I'm told that you can get that reversed these days if you want to. But I haven't had to see that. The big thing for surviving spouses, your application is going to rest on your most recent marriage. So unfortunately, if the marriage was to a wartime veteran, and let's just say the veteran passed away and then the second marriage was to a non-veteran, you've theoretically canceled yourself out of this particular pension. Now there's benefits that you can still get, but this benefit would be a no-no. And unfortunately, divorce ends the marriage. So if you're divorced from a veteran, you're not the surviving spouse. So I always ask the second question for a surviving spouse after the wartime: was the spouse married to the veteran when the veteran died, and were there any future marriages? And that way we're not leading them down a path that might not work. If the veteran has the wartime, the next thing is the need for care. The person has to need care. So what's going on? Physical or cognitive impairments. So that's usually why I started out in assisted living, because those folks move to assisted living because they need some care. And we're looking at activities of daily living that would trigger a long-term care insurance policy payout: bathing, dressing, toileting, feeding, all the things on the left-hand side of the page. These services are generally provided by home health care or senior living. Early on, the VA didn't really understand cognitive impairments, that those folks do need supervision and protection. So we would send the doctor's evaluation, the 21-2680 form, in with the application, and sometimes it would only check like medication management, and they would say, oh, bathing and dressing, they're fine. Well, I learned quickly in 2006 that we did not want to send a doctor's evaluation in with just medication management, because the VA would send a letter back saying, we're giving you a chance to strengthen your claim. Well, what the VA is saying there is, we don't really think you need much care. So we don't want to award this money to people that don't need much care. So I always try to check activities of daily living. One of the questions on the doctor's evaluation is already checked yes. It asks, does the claimant need assistance bathing or tending to other hygiene needs? And it's always checked yes. And sometimes the family will tell me, well, my dad's got a little memory issue, but he's fine. He can bathe himself and dress himself. That's not a problem. And I say, well, does the family ever have to remind your dad maybe it's time to take a shower, or maybe it's time to not wear the same clothes. And I said the liberal definition of that is they need assistance because they need reminders. And the more ADLs, the better, because if it's just medication management or just supervision, maybe the VA could just say, well, that's only one activity of daily living and we want two. So I always try to make sure that the application goes in with two, not so much that it can't be rectified if push comes to shove, but if someone has an application delayed, and I'm seeing a lot of people 98, 99, 101, we put the application in. But if it gets delayed, it's a big letdown if that person doesn't outlive the decision period. So a little bit of history on me. In 2006, when we started, applications were taking 9 to 12 months to be awarded. Over the years, that ebbed and flowed. In 2011, they created what's called the Tiger Team. That was just another task force to get these applications done because they were backing up. And then all of a sudden, we were getting applications approved in a month or two. That was great. But then that changed and it became a little bit longer over the years. And then we had the rule changes in 2018, which is I'm going to talk about pretty soon here, where they had to create 2 new forms that had to be filled out. The one was an 11-page form, and then they added 2 pages to the main forms. And then we had the government shutdown in 2018. Remember that 35-day shutdown? Well, that was a month or so before they changed all the forms. So they hadn't trained all their VA workers on what they wanted from those forms. So my theory was the 2019 or end of 2018 applications were taking about 13 to 14 months to be awarded. That's way too long for someone 94, 98, 88, 84 to wait, because if the person passes away, good luck trying to get the money that you thought you were going to get. It's just probably not going to happen unless there's a surviving spouse and we can file for what we would call an accrued benefit. So that's why we look at this, and we want that doctor's evaluation to not be something that can be delayed. The third leg of the criteria is your income, and VA looks at it from all sources. So your 1099s, your W-2s, because when we put an application in for a veteran, one of the spouses might still be working, so they might have wages. They might have a W-2. Of course, any investment income comes on a 1099. It's either a 1099 INT or 1099 DIV. People that have the IRAs, it's a 1099-R, which means they took a distribution. So that all counts against you as your income, and that's added up to a gross income. So many people might have a smart strategy and they withhold taxes because they don't want to pay taxes at the end of the year. I wouldn't. But then the VA sees that gross income, and you might be used to looking at your bank statement saying, oh, I get, X amount of dollars per month, but really it's a lot higher because you withhold taxes. So we look at the gross income, and what it is that the expenses that someone has for their medical expenses can be netted against their income or subtracted from their income. And these are all the expenses that people pay for senior living, whether it's independent living, could work, assisted living, supportive living, nursing home care, also in-home care if you have a home caregiver or a home health agency at home. All those expenses are considered medical expenses. The VA also allows you to subtract your Medicare supplemental policies that you have to pay monthly or bi-monthly premiums for. I've listed prescriptions for a reason. For this factor, or for this item, the VA is not very fair. They really don't allow prescriptions on the initial application because they'll send in their letter back that says, we didn't use prescriptions because those are not a predictable expense. We can't count on the amount each month. So when I saw that in the award letter, this is going back 15, 16 years, I said, well, why would I put prescriptions in there if I didn't need them? Now, some people do need them, and they will be awarded less than the maximum if they're counting on their prescriptions being used as an offset to their income. So I tell a family up front that they might not get the maximum, but after 1 calendar year, we will save all those prescription receipts, or we'll ask the drugstore, whether it be Walgreens, Osco, or Jewel, or whomever, CVS, to print the last year of what you paid out of pocket. And then we can submit all of your medical expenses, including your home care or your assisted living, for that entire year to get you bumped up to getting more money. And we do this regularly. So any expenses paid out of pocket that are not reimbursed by insurance are considered unreimbursed medical expenses by the VA, and we can use them to offset or net against your income. And this is important because we want to get the monthly maximum. These are big amounts. The surviving spouse can get $1,244 a month. Single veteran, $1,936. A married veteran, where the married veteran is healthy, doesn't need any care, still drives, still does all of, golfs, whatever, but the spouse needs care, the award is about $1,520 a month as the maximum. So it can still make a difference, even though the veteran doesn't need care. But when the veteran needs care and is married, it's up to $2,295 a month. So this is a big deal. And this is the way the VA looks at the basic equation. If your income is less than your care expenses, so let's just say someone is fortunate enough to have $4,000 a month of income in retirement, but their assisted living or their in-home care costs $5,000. Well, they don't have any income according to the VA because of this calculation. Well, then they're going to get the full benefit. They're going to get those full amounts on that previous page. There are other things that the family can use as care expenses if they're renting, like a life alert, if they have to rent an oxygen, feed, any of those types of things, because those cost monthly. Even a hospital bed you'd have to pay for monthly, so you could use that as well. If their income is higher than their care expenses, they could be awarded less than the maximum. So in this case, I just said, in this case, the person has $4,000 a month of income, the surviving spouse, but their care expenses are only $3,500. So they could possibly get $744 a month, not the maximum. This is a case where we would go back to the VA every year and say, here's what we spent on prescriptions. Here's what we spent on Ensure because the doctor recommends that she drink Ensure. Or here's what we spent on Depends because here's what we go through every month in Depends. So I would just tell the family, save those receipts, we can use those. And of course, somebody might have a dental visit that they have to pay for out of pocket, or they might have co-pays that add up over the year to go to the doctor, or hearing aids. So all those expenses that they have to pay for out of pocket, even if they're one-time expenses, we can go and recap that full year and then submit everything to the VA again to get more money. After your income, the VA does look at all of your assets. They're going to look at your net worth. And when I say assets, anything that could be turned into cash. So all your bank accounts, your CDs, annuities, IRAs, 401ks, mutual funds, real estate, stocks, and bonds. It's all countable. In 2018, when they changed all the forms, the reason for that was they created what's called a clear, bright line asset limit. In 2018, the amount was $127,061. So you can see each year that passes, Social Security goes up a little bit. This is why the asset limit's up to $130,772 right now. Now, what assets are not included are your home. That's an exempt asset. It does not count against you at all. The problem might be if you ever move out of your home and sell it, because then you could feed your bank account and you could see how that could go up a lot. So everything that I do, I try to avoid letting that happen. So I try to counsel families in the beginning, in the middle, and the end so that we don't ever have to have a VA benefit taken away. Other things, funeral trust policies, final expense policies, those are exempt because those are going to be designated as the funeral home is going to be the first beneficiary. So those policy values are not counted. Of course, a vehicle or personal property is also not counted. So we got the 4 criteria, and then people are going to ask me, well, geez, what if I'm over the asset limit? Is there a look back period? In 2018, October 18th, 2018, the VA invoked a 36-month look back period. And we rebutted it for about 3.5 years because they came out with these statutes that they were proposing in January of 2015. And we didn't like it because it's the same asset limit for a single person as it is for a married couple, which right off the bat, that doesn't seem fair to us. And if someone mistakenly applies with more than that or has improperly given any money away, the penalty could be a lot greater than 36 months. So because my background, I'm also a certified financial planner, I like to look at strategies that can help people qualify sooner versus them being upset because they think this is a good government program and, oh, the application isn't too hard to fill out. And the person that gave it to me said, just, do this and send it in without planning. That with no planning, it can go awry. So some families with proper planning can qualify immediately if they're over the 137.72, while others still may have to wait up to 36 months. So that's the focus of my Tuesday night Zoom meetings where I do the VA benefit. I try to help families with strategies because there are some. Even with the changes in the rules, even with the penalty, there are some things that people can do. So can they do some things other than just waiting? Yes. We may want to use strategies to qualify sooner and while the applicant is healthy. And let's spend a minute or two or just ponder that. If someone served during a war period or their spouse did, they're always in that pool of people that could possibly ever get this money. So every effort should be made to make this VA benefit your long-term care insurance policy. Now, I know it's not going to pay you as much as a long-term care insurance policy can pay in many cases, but at least it can pay something because you're always going to be eligible for it. You just might be over the asset limit, and there's ways to legally structure your estate to make sure you qualify for it. And so while you're healthy, if the VA has a 36-month look-back period, if you did something now, maybe you won't need care for 5 or 10 years, but if you did it to make sure that you were qualified, then you don't have to wait another 36 months when your time to get care is. Always consult a legal professional or someone who's an expert because you don't want to just do this on your own. We're not advocating just going and giving away all your money because that's not what the proper planning suggests. But with proper planning, some people are eligible immediately and some people might have to wait 36 months, which that's the worst case scenario. If you do nothing and you're over-resourced now, there's no telling that you're going to be eligible in 36 months or not. So what can you do? I say look 3 years forward. And why would I do that? Let's say a veteran is paying a little bit more attention to their spouse or vice versa. The spouse is paying a little bit more attention to the veteran because things just aren't right. Maybe it's mobility, maybe it's an illness they went through, maybe a surgery didn't go very well, or maybe they're starting to have these UTIs that happen and, maybe for a week or 2 or 3, they're not the same person until they recover. And that's kind of scary. So let's look at it like a 3-year look forward period. If they're over the asset limit now, what should we be doing now so that when we do have to start paying more for care or when the spouse cannot do it any longer because they're exhausted and their health is compromised, doing this for 16 years, that is something I see over and over again. The spouse that starts out caring for the spouse, if it goes on long enough, the spouse that is the caregiver originally is the one, unfortunately, that's going to leave this earth first because they're going to break down. And it's just a fact. Now, does it always happen? No. Sometimes the family is a good support unit and they start to step in before it becomes disastrous. But if the family can't be around a lot and they don't notice, that generation from World War II, even Korea and even Vietnam, it was the spouse's duty to care for their spouse. They wouldn't sometimes let anyone else care for their spouse. And we always tell families, let yourself get help. And that's what this benefit is for, to help you pay for the care. So we recommend legally planning to obtain the benefit for which you're already eligible for. Nobody can ever take the wartime away from either you or your spouse. Talk to an expert about all of your options. Use wise planning to always keep your home exempt. Because what happens if someone moves to assisted living? Do they still want or need to have a house? Probably not. So eventually, what are they going to do? They're going to sell their house. So our strategies always look at let's make the house an exempt asset forever. And we talk about the family dynamics and what are the next step to do that. So if I sell my home, that can cause a loss of benefits due to that increase in assets. So if families foresee selling their home, they should consult an expert or a VA accredited attorney who can advise them about strategies to protect their home if indeed they are going to sell it. So what's next? This is where I kind of segue into what we do on Tuesdays and talk about different planning techniques. But can you plan for VA benefits or even Medicaid? Of course you can. You can do anything you want while you're healthy. Even if you're not healthy, you can do it. Do your current legal documents protect your home and your life savings from a nursing home? We talk about that. Can we get the VA benefit with the current documents you have? Most do not. Now, this is not intended to give legal advice. This is just from experience. We recommend talking with a qualified attorney. I usually have an attorney on my Tuesday night calls. Now that tax season is over after today, he will be back on the calls, and I let him take over this section. So we talk about strategies that will work. Now, these are some of the things we talk about. Does it make sense to review your current legal documents? Does it make sense to plan to avoid unnecessary unintended losses just because you didn't know? Can you change your plans, even if you already have the documents? Can you change your plans if you're compromised or incompetent? That's a big deal because attorneys don't want to change anything if someone's compromised. So we look at the documents that someone has, or we at least talk about them so that we can make sure that you have a supercharged power of attorney if you think that that is a good thing, because most standard powers of attorney miss important planning tools. You can't make many changes with the standard powers of attorney. And it's not legal advice, this is just experience. We also talk about guardianship. Having a power of attorney, if you don't have one, guardianship's way more expensive. We don't want that to happen if we can avoid it. Can a power of attorney for property avoid guardianship? Yes. And how much does a power of attorney cost versus guardianship? We're talking about hundreds of dollars versus thousands of dollars. And I tell families, guardianship is probably going to be 50 times more expensive than a power of attorney document would be. And you can avoid that now. We also talk about healthcare powers of attorney on our Tuesday night calls and why they need to be updated. We talk about wills and trusts briefly. We just say it's probably a good time to update them or review them, or if you don't have one, create one. And then on the beneficiary designations, if someone is getting a veteran's benefit or if someone's getting any kind of government benefits, even Medicaid, we may not want that person to receive life insurance proceeds or any retirement plan proceeds if their spouse dies. It's counterintuitive. And I know that as a planner, as a financial person, there's not many financial planners that would not want a spouse to be a beneficiary. And I understand why. But if someone receives that money and their benefits are stopped, that could be why. And then a family that I helped a while ago, 2012, I believe, said, nobody ages gradually. It happens all of a sudden, and then it's a crisis. And that's why we do what we do. So hopefully we opened your mind tonight to let you know what's out there. And of course, thank you to all our veterans and our veteran families for your service. Every Tuesday at 7, we do our Zoom meeting. Our link can be emailed to you if you want to write down the email address, or if you're watching this video and you want to rewind. The Zoom link is in there. You'll have to remember that these are the most important numbers, this 987-569-4063. So I just did that, sorry. And I think we got the last slide here. And of course, any questions you have, I'd be glad to answer. And if you're watching this for the first time and you want to show this to your family, anyone can jump on the Tuesday night calls because I do them every Tuesday at 7. And I really do appreciate being able to present for the New Lenox Library. And I wish everyone the best. And you got all my information. If you want to give me a call or email me, no problem. Thanks for being here.